Good evening, Cuse Nation, and welcome to the Upstate Orange Podcast, recorded live inside the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. It's Thursday, January 16th, 2014, and tonight we're going to be talking about the undefeated Syracuse Orange at 17-0, a look at Saturday's game in the Dome against Pitt. How long will Syracuse be playing basketball in the Carrier Dome? Some Syracuse basketball trivia and a whole lot more. I'm Jim Sinacropi, along with my co-host Matt Verkey.
What's up, Jim?
And our resident college basketball guru via telephone in Cincinnati, Brad Connor. Good evening, Brad.
Yes.
The Upstate Orange Podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank with locations in Auburn, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. And Seneca Meadows, responsible waste management for the next generation. Learn more online at senecameadows.com. And by Midday, Miras and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. If you've been injured and deserve compensation, call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. Or visit them online at middaymirasricky.com. So Syracuse 17-0. We beat North Carolina. I said we were going to roll them, and we did. It was only 12 points, but it was really a 20-25 point win. They got some cheapies at the end there. We killed North Carolina, and then we head into Boston College and have a little bit of a letdown, but still pull it out. So let's talk about it with our Big Five questions. So this week, first question I got for you guys is. Back in early November, nobody thought we'd be 17-0 at this point. We were predicting, a loss, maybe even 2 losses in Maui, a lot of turnover on this team, thinking it would take a little bit of time. But, it's gotten to the point now where Grantland.com posted an article Tuesday with the headline, "Bow Down to Your New ACC Overlords." And I like the sound of that. But, what makes this team so good? What makes us better than all these other teams that have 2, 3, 4 losses now? What is it?
I think they've made plays when they've had to. Coach Boeheim's talked about it. They've had 3 or 4 games this year they could have lost. They could have lost to Boston College the other night. They're down 8 with 8 or 9 minutes to go, and in the games where they've been tight, they've I think Tyler Ennis is a big difference. He's a proven winner at this point in his career. He's always under control, and this team doesn't seem to get rattled. They even though they got some inexperience in the backcourt, they've always come up with a big play, and they're great defensively. They got everything you need to be a great team.
What about you, Brad? What makes this team so special?
I think the chemistry is as good as any we've seen. I mean, last year the chemistry was great, but I think these guys, it doesn't seem like there's any egos, any attitudes. They just play together. And in the past, we've seen from time to time, the academic issues and suspensions and things. And as far as we know, there's no rumors of any of this stuff, and that we have seen a team that goes about their business, and they're very professional about what they do. They do it as efficiently as I think they can do, and they just thrive on winning. They don't have anybody that's trying to put up numbers. They don't have anybody that's trying to, try out for the NBA. They just have guys that want to win and want to set a real strong message as they go into this new league.
Yeah, and, I really attribute it to the Boeheim system. And, if you really wonder why we win so many games, there's one stat that really stood out to me. Syracuse has taken, at this point in the season, 130 more field goal attempts and 110 more free throws than their opponents. And that's a product of getting turnovers, of getting second shots, of controlling the flow of the game, of getting to the rim. And, really basketball, if we have 103 more shot attempts than our opponents, you're going to have a better chance of scoring more than your opponents.
Yeah, they don't turn it over a lot, which is obviously huge. so there alone, we're obviously getting more shots because we're not giving it to the other team, and we take it away. And it's pretty simple. And the defense has been there all year. Even in Boston College, when they were down 8 or 9 points there, I never felt like they were in trouble losing that game. You just knew they were going to make some plays, and eventually Boston College was going to miss some shots, and that's exactly what happened.
And I say this: throw our players on the court for a pickup game against Duke or Kansas, and I bet you, we're not 17-0 if these were pickup games. But, coached by Boeheim, in that, it's almost like a Chip Kelly Oregon football offense where, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. In that system, they're going to have success. And I think because Boeheim's been recruiting the type of players for his system, and his system seems to be so finely tuned in terms of the 2-3 zone and, the length of the players and even his offense now. A lot of people criticize his half-court offense over the years. He's got the right players to make him versatile on the offensive end as well. And I just think that we're going to continue to see the success for a number of years as long as he keeps recruiting people for this system. And it's surprising that we don't see more coaches try to emulate Boeheim because, all he does is win.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see a little bit more zone, across the country, but nobody plays exclusively zone in the country outside of, I think Eastern Michigan, coached by
Rob Murphy.
They pretty much, he's trying to do what Boeheim obviously learned from him, and they play pretty much exclusively zone. But, it's kind of unheard of, and, I think he made the switch probably 4 or 5 years ago to not play any man whatsoever in reality. I remember when Johnny Flynn was there, he always wanted to play man-to-man and stuff, and he recruits to that zone, and it works. If you look at defensive percentages all around, you name a defensive stat, and the zone is there for it. So, it's unique.
Guys, give Boeheim credit too. He understands the trends of the college game, and he understands that there are fewer pure athletes that play this game now than used to, because the best players are going pro after their freshman year, and we've got teams that just collectively don't shoot the basketball nearly as well as they used to. So the zone has become that much more effective, and I think he's recognized that for the last number of years, where he said that the zone can become that much more of a weapon. So he's putting even more energy and more emphasis on perfecting that zone, because you're going to see that take its toll on even good teams. And, Virk, you said it. BC, you always kind of got the sense that Syracuse is going to come back in that game. BC, that guy Jackson was not going to continue to, hit 75% of his three-pointers, and ultimately he didn't. Teams just don't do that.
Yeah, and speaking of players going pro, that leads me to question number 2. All of a sudden now, Tyler Ennis goes from beginning of the season being a question mark and not being too well-known nationwide to all of a sudden he's appearing on NBA mock drafts as a lottery pick. And, so my question to you guys is Tyler Ennis going pro after this year? One and done?
It's a possibility now. I didn't believe it at the beginning of the year, but I did take a look at a couple of those draft boards. They had him. The ones I saw had him anywhere from 13 to 20, and basically saying he's he can run a team. They feel, he's not the greatest athlete, but he doesn't turn the ball over. He's shooting 42% from three. His turnover to assist ratio is, it's like 4.5 to 1. It's out of this world. It's second in the nation, I believe. And he doesn't get rattled. Obviously, being a fan, I think he needs another year or two, and he's only going to get better. But it's scary when a lot of times these guys are when they're projected to go in the first round. A lot of times they typically go. And
as great as Ennis is as a college point guard, I still don't see him as an NBA point guard. And I'm almost thinking this guy could be a 3 or 4 year player for us. But yet at the same time, if an NBA team's going to pick him, 12th, 13th. There's a realistic chance he'll go. What do you think, Brad? Is Tyler Ennis going to be back in Orange for his sophomore season?
It's hard to tell right now because there's just a lot that has to play out. If, for example, if this team wins a national championship, I think he's gone. Honestly, I don't know as if there's that much more to prove. If you're the point guard of a national champion, I think you've just solidified yourself as a first round draft pick, if not a lottery pick. Let's think about it this way: would Michael Carter Williams have gone pro if Syracuse had lost in the second round last year? If they had lost to Cal, say, would he have gone to would he have gone pro, or would he stuck around and tried to work on some things?
Yeah,
going to the Final Four
point.
made it more marketable, and his time was right. I don't know as if Tyler Ennis is going to have a outstanding NBA career. I don't think he's got the pure athleticism potentially that you see a lot of point guards in the NBA have. I mean, but a lot of guys I've seen compare Tyler Ennis to somebody like Andre Miller, who had a great career and was a similar style player. So I think he can be successful, but I don't know. It's a business, and he's trying to market himself in the best way he can. If he's got people that are telling him he's going to be a first round pick, then maybe he'll go. If depends on who else comes out. You've probably got Marcus Smart from Oklahoma State, who's going to be the top point guard that goes. Who else? Probably some of the kids from Kentucky, the Harrison twins. They'll probably go ahead of them.
Jabari Parker.
Who else?
Yeah,
UConn guys. They, and I told everybody at the beginning of the year he's a 4-year player. He just seemed he's not real. You say Andre Miller, but he's not that big and he's not super quick. But he gets the job done, so it's hard to fault him. But when I compare him and I say he's going to guard Derrick Rose, or what I mean, like it just doesn't seem like they're two different players.
He needs to mature a little more physically, I think. But again, we've talked about it before. We talked about it with Jeremy Grant. They're drafting on potential.
Sure.
And I just never saw him. Even now, I still can't picture him, running the point in the NBA. So time will tell. Question number 3, and it comes back to our late game efficiency, how we keep, no matter what, last 5 minutes of the game, we're controlling the game. Whether we got to come back from 8-10 points down or, we cruise into the end of the game with a healthy lead. But, it seems to me that, if we can get to 5 minutes and left in the game and, be tied or even 2, 3, 4 down, that, the game's almost in the bag. And a lot of that has to do with Ennis, I'd say. But, can we keep this up, or are we just playing with fire when we keep getting down, to teams like St. Francis, Brooklyn, or Miami, or Boston College? We're bound to get bit, right, guys?
I would think so.
I think they're going to lose a game. I mean, let's be honest. And if they do, it'll probably be a close one, and they'll probably lose, by the last second shot or last possession shot, and so it'll happen. But like I was saying before, the way the zone attacks teams, they want to be able to shoot to beat the zone, and the shooting goes at the end of the game. The guys are tired, their legs are going. It's tougher to make shots. So the zone's going to be a lot more effective down the stretch. Saw that against Boston College. Saw that a couple other times, St. Francis in the Maui tournament. We saw that. But I think, too, this is just a veteran team. They just have great poise.
With a freshman point guard. We're a veteran team with a freshman point guard.
I mean, you've got a senior in Fair. You've got a redshirt sophomore in Cooney, who's in his third year in the program. You've got Keita as a senior, Christmas a junior. They've got a lot of poise. They don't get rattled.
Right. Yeah, that's true. You're not going to rattle them, no matter how well you shoot. And that's the other thing, Verk. Boston College, Cal and Baylor both shot like 50% for 3 against them, but they can't keep that up.
No, and you just, they miss a couple, we get the rebound, we go down and score. We picked up the intensity a little bit. And I just think they're so much better with Grant getting 30 minutes a game and starting, and he brings so much to the table, from rebounding to knocking down shots. He's in that zone. He's so versatile that this team they have all the key components, and somehow they, with the both the backcourt being kind of inexperienced. Cooney's been around for 3 years, but didn't play a whole lot last year. They're they're mature beyond their years, really, and like you said, it starts with Tyler Ennis.
All right, guys. Well, let's look ahead to maybe a game that we potentially could lose, and that's this Saturday in the Dome. Pittsburgh's coming in. Will it be a familiar foe that hands us our first loss? Are we going to beat Pitt?
Yes. I just think this is a pretty good Pitt team. They haven't been, they haven't played the best schedule up to this point. They come in with a pretty good record, but they're not a great 3-point shooting team. but Pitt always seemed to attack that baseline against us pretty good. They always got those guys. They got a guy at the foul line. They seem to always dump it down low, and they've done well
and make us struggle on offense as well.
Yeah, they've done fairly well against Syracuse over the years,
Yep.
and and they're a team. They're not they're going to be just as physical as Syracuse, just as athletic. They always bring they got a lot of strength and toughness down there. So it's going to be a battle, but I think we pull it out.
How about you, Brad? We're going to beat Pitt.
I think we will. It's fortunate the game's in the Dome. If it was at the Peterson Center, I'd be less confident.
Yeah, and we do go there. We go to the Pete later, a few weeks.
Well, and Verk's bold prediction, I think it was that they'd be undefeated going into that game. I think that's still probably a pretty good prediction because that's just a tough place for anybody to win, let alone what Syracuse has been able to do over the years. But being at the Dome, I think that fares well for Syracuse. Pitt's a solid team, and it's always a matchup problem. They do know how to find the weaknesses in the zone, and Jamie Dixon does good game planning against that zone as anybody. I wish he could translate that into tournament success, but he somehow manages to beat Syracuse more often than not. But I looked at Pitt's schedule. I don't think they've only got one loss against Cincinnati, but their wins. Nothing
loss.
Really stands out as an impressive win.
Beat Stanford, pretty bad.
I'm not sure what the resume is as impressive as the record would indicate. So I may not be as strong as that record says.
Yeah, and their best wins were against Stanford in November. They blew them out in a preseason event, and they beat Maryland, NC State, and Wake Forest in league. So, and they really haven't played anyone else. As a matter of fact, I think those were the only 4 wins in the top 100.
Winning at NC State was probably their best win, and NC State's not even a ranked team, so I'm not sure how much they really have to hang their head on right now.
Something else weird about this Pitt game? It's the first time these two teams have met in a home-and-home series in the same season since 2004-2005. And, so we've been in the Big East with these guys. We haven't played them home-and-home in a long time, in almost 7-8 years, and now we go to the ACC, and now we're going to play them home-and-home. So I thought that was kind of strange, but yeah, I'm scared of Pitt. It's the same deal with Pitt. They got usually 6 or 7 deep where you could change the names on the back of the uniforms. You can get the same style of play. They got a 5th-year senior, Lamar Patterson. He leads the ACC in field goal percentage and 6th in the league in scoring. He's averaging 17 points a game. And then they got Talib Zanna. He's the top rebounder on the Panthers with 8.1 game. He's shooting 60% from the floor, leads the team in blocks. They did lose a player. Their 4th leading scorer, Duran Johnson, tore his ACL and meniscus. He was averaging about 20 minutes off the bench. So, to me, like I say, I don't care what Panthers, whether it's Brandon Knight or Carl Krauser or Juwan Blair, it's going to be a dogfight, and I think we win this one. If it was in Pitt, I would have to say we'd probably, even at number 2 in the country, have to be 3-4 point underdogs going to Pitt. So, but I think we come out with the win on Saturday, and in the Dome, which leads me to my next question. I don't know, Brad, you're in Cincinnati if you followed this story, but there's been rumors of development of a new arena, a new multi-purpose facility off campus in Syracuse with 40,000-seat arena, retractable roof, and it turns out that it looks like that's not going to happen, but then Darryl Gross has come back saying we're going to renovate the Dome now. He's trying to push. Obviously, it's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of logistics involved, but he was on the radio the other day saying stuff like retractable roof and, full renovation. And I guess my question was, is Syracuse going to be playing in the Carrier Dome 5 years from now? I think the answer is yes, but what's a Carrier Dome going to look like? Have you guys been keeping up with that story at all?
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about it. There's a lot of politics that are going back and forth between the university and the city, it looks like.
And the state. And the county.
It would be hard to fathom playing games off campus, frankly.
Yeah, I don't like that idea.
It would be hard to think of an arena that would house not only Syracuse football, Syracuse basketball, but the Crunch and local like a women's hockey program and all these different things. It just seems like Syracuse is a basketball school first, Syracuse or football city second. Everything else is below the radar, and to have to share the marquee with those types of programs, I would have a very difficult time kind of thinking that that's an option. I keep coming back to it's got to be a renovation of the Carrier Dome.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
How do you do it, right? I mean, I can give you an example. They're redoing the football stadium at Cincinnati, Nippert Stadium, and they're literally taking them out for a year. They're going to be playing at the Bengals Stadium. I mean, how do you
Gross would pull us down
and retrofit it to make it as good as 2014 says it should be, and not completely gut it and be gone for a year? Where do you play?
Well, I think, the football team, I can answer that. Daryl Gross will have us playing in Yankee Stadium, MetLife Stadium, every venue in New York City for the year, and I think he'd be perfectly happy with that. I don't know how long it takes to retrofit a dome with a retractable roof, but they did a project in British Columbia. The arena is called BC Place, and if you look on Wikipedia for this arena, BC Place, you'll see that the before pictures, it looked just like the Carrier Dome, and they built a retractable roof on it. It's different than the kind of retractable roofs you've seen, in the NFL stadiums that we've seen, like in Arizona. This one is more. They built these beams kind of up, and these clear plexiglass type of enclosure, so it's almost like a sunroof in parts of it. So I know it can be done. It's a matter of how long it would take. Do you have to demolish a surrounding building, or and at the same time, when you talk about renovations, are you talking about increasing or decreasing the capacity of the place?
But you got to be talking about concessions and bathrooms. So you're
wider concourses if it's possible.
You go out to get a pop or the hot dog. You're not behind a concrete wall. You can actually watch the game. The state of the art arenas are designed exactly that way. So you're always the action is always there. Carrier Dome has never been designed that way, and so to do it right, you've got to completely gut the concourses. You've got to rip all the seats out to make them comfortable. You can't just have seat backs on certain seats. You got to have it everywhere. I mean, this could be a huge undertaking if they do it and do it right.
Yeah, and a part of me says, I just love going to the Dome. I don't care if they change anything. For football, it's a little different story sometimes. It would be nice to open up the old roof in September instead of sitting there in 95 degrees humidity. But for basketball especially, I love it. And, the concourses and the bathrooms and the concessions and all that stuff would be great. And I guess we kind of need it to stay with the times. But I still love the Dome experience. And it is vital to me that we keep this thing on campus there. When you even see the words Carrier Dome, to me it's something special. It's something that makes Syracuse special from other schools, and honestly, it's one of the most. It's become one of the most venerable locations in college sports.
But yeah, I wrote the word iconic. There's a handful of iconic arenas around the country. All of them have history associated with them. And a lot of them you're talking about, Cameron Indoor Stadium, and you're talking about Pauley Pavilion and Rupp Arena and Fog Allen Fieldhouse. But you take an arena like the Yum Center in Louisville, which I've been to, and it's fantastic, an amazing place to watch a basketball game. It's got everything you'd ever want, but it's corporate, it's stale, it doesn't have the atmosphere and the history. I mean, it's new, so it won't have the history, but you just don't have the same atmosphere that you would get in a place where you can smell stale beer on the ground and where you've been and you've got memories and that go back 30, 40 years, like the Carrier Dome, and frankly, it's an emblem of the university. And to change that dramatically, I think you lose a lot more than you gain.
I'll tell you one thing that I think they could do with the current Carrier Dome, and again, this logistically, but on the pull-out bleachers, it would be nice if they could have luxury boxes up above there. I don't know, you build some type of structure, but that's one problem with the Dome for basketball. There's no good luxury boxes around the baseline sides. Imagine if the top of that bleachers had like about 8 nice luxury suites with tinted glass windows up the top, and they'd be some of the best seats in the Dome, and you could command a lot of money for that, and it would make the Dome look great too, I think, and kind of close it in a little more. But hey, I don't know how you do that. I'm no engineer.
The other thing you want to do is make sure you've got it fit up so you can put 50,000 in there for a Duke game if necessary.
Yeah, I guess details will come out as we move forward. Now, this is part of the conversation. I think it's just an example of Dr. Gross kind of pushing his agenda. He always wants something new. He always wants something flashy, and I think that's a good thing for Syracuse. And it's a good thing that we're talking about moving forward and progressing, but at the end of the day, I hope that we're still there in the Carrier Dome, a revamped or remodeled Carrier Dome. And what about the basketball team? What if it did cost us to miss a season of basketball? We can't go back to Manly and play games, not that we would want to for that long anyways, but we're the basketball team. Madison Square Garden, don't be surprised. Daryl Gross loves New York City, so
we'll see.
What's your thoughts on the Dome, Verk? You want to see it revamped?
I think it needs a facelift. I mean, something a little different. They've added little things here and there.
Ribbon board, ribbon video.
Yeah, but it is getting outdated. Obviously, for the football program, going up and watching a game in September, October would be awesome if it was possible to have a retractable roof or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about.
You're not an engineer either.
Yeah, and if it could be done and it's doable, I'm all for it. And to make it a little more comfy in there, and it's we love it because we've been going there since we were kids. But it's some of these arenas. Like I went and watched the Dallas Mavericks play, and that arena was just unbelievable. The setup of it and the scene. It was like they had clubs in it, and
we got
it's just
Club
unbelievable.
44.
Yeah, but this was you could go out and order a beer and watch the game from, like Brad said, it's all open everywhere you are, and you could see the game from anywhere, and it was pretty cool in a really nice arena. But the Carrier Dome's Carrier Dome, and we love it, and whatever they do, I think they got to keep that intact. The dome and the 30
on campus.
You can never go less than 30,000. I wouldn't think for any type of basketball arena. So we'll see what happens.
Well, few news item from this week. I don't know if you saw the update on Chris McCullough. He's the recruit that had to switch schools, coming to Syracuse next year. 23 points, 9 rebounds is what he's averaging at the new school. And reading the article in the Post-Standard about him, he's kind of mature, and basketball mature, and kind of takes everything in stride, makes it look easy. So we'll be seeing him next season in the Dome. But as we mentioned, Saturday, 4 o'clock, Pittsburgh. It's on ESPN or ESPN2. It's on one of those 2 ESPN stations, in the Dome. And then we got a week off until we come back at 1 o'clock at Miami on CBS, and that's going to be a tough game for us heading down to Miami. And then Wednesday, January 29th, it's at Wake Forest. And then Saturday, February 1st, of course, at 6:30 p.m., ESPN Game Day will be at the Dome as Duke comes to the Dome for the first time. And that game's honestly lost a little bit of its luster with Duke losing so many games and barely beating Virginia and Cameron. So, hey, who knows? But we're going to step aside for 60 seconds, hear from our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to have some great Syracuse trivia.
We hold on to the things that really matter. Welcome to Generations Bank.
Hi, I'm Jody Torrio. If you're like me, you've got stuff lying around the house that you want to recycle, but you're just not sure how, like broken toasters, vacuum cleaners, or microwaves. At Seneca Meadows, we have a drop-off for those. Bring in anything with a cord, and we'll make sure it's recycled properly through our partnership with 2TRG. It's that easy.
And welcome back to the Upstate Orange Podcast on FingerLakes1.tv. Every week, Brad comes up with a trivia question or a few trivia questions. We never know. But he challenges us with some trivia, usually Syracuse related, sometimes related to the teams we're playing that week. No idea what it is, Verk. We never know, so we can't prepare. It's honest trivia. And it's one of my favorite parts of the show. So, Brad, what do you have for us this week?
We're talking about playing Pitt on Saturday, and we don't care much about the history of the other ACC schools. We've established that, but Pitt's a long-standing rival of Syracuse, which is, it's funny, guys, because when you think of Syracuse's rivals, Pitt never really comes to mind, but, I mean, they've had a great rivalry, really, over the years, and
sure.
Pitt wasn't one of the original Big East members, but they came in '82 and have been lockstep with Syracuse pretty much ever since, and Syracuse has had the upper hand more often than not. But
you look at them as the
they should
original
be more natural
member.
rivals than they are, I think.
Yeah, and I wonder why that is. Just because, you'd think Villanova's a bigger rival with Syracuse than Pitt, and you would think that obviously Georgetown and UConn. But I think a lot of it has to do with Pitt's lack of postseason success. It kind of, if they've been to a Final Four, they show up as a bigger, game on our schedule in terms of how the fans perceive it. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of because we've had some great battles. So
think back to some of those battles. Can you guys tell me, in the Big East era, who the coaches for the Pitt Panthers were? Burke knows one of these guys intimately well, but can you name all of them?
I don't think that Paul Evans was the coach when they came into the league. I think they must have had another coach for a few years before Evans came on, because Evans coached Navy when Pearl. In Pearl's last game, so before Evans, there was a coach at Pittsburgh.
I have no idea who it is.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't either.
Chipman was the coach of Pitt.
What was the name?
Dr. Roy Chipman.
Oh, okay, yeah, that does ring a bell.
I don't know what he's a doctor of, but he was a doctor anyway.
And then Evans?
Oh, gross, probably. And then Evans, right. So Dr. Roy Chipman was from 1980 to 86, and then Paul Evans started in 86, right after that Navy team that beat Syracuse.
So Evans coached both. So both of those coaches coached Charles Smith.
Or was Smith? Charles Smith's era.
I think he was like 84 to 86.
This was 84 to 88. Yep.
88.
Then after Evans was Ralph Willard.
Oh, great call.
Correct.
And then after Ralph Willard was Ben Howland.
Yep.
And then after Ben Howland was Jamie Dixon. Hey, good job tonight.
Guys.
If only we knew Dr. Chipman.
You do now.
I remember being really upset when Howland left to go to UCLA.
When did Willard take over? 95, 96, somewhere in there? 94, 5?
94.
94.
Hey, Dixon's done probably the best job of any of them. I mean, in terms of maintaining a certain level of success.
Well, he's certainly been there longer. Dixon took over in 2003, and he's been there, so he's going on his 11th, 12th year, and nobody else preceding him had been there any longer than Paul Evans was there 8 years. And no signs of Dixon stopping him. He's had opportunities to go elsewhere, and he's solidified his presence at Pitt. I think he's a long-term coach there. It seems like he's built something he doesn't want to give up.
Yeah, well, step one to building a great college basketball program is getting a coach that's going to stay there for decade after decade, like Jim Boeheim, like Mike Krzyzewski, and like Jamie Dixon. And, honestly, it's tough to build any type of consistent winning program when you're changing the man at the top. And for most schools, that's something that's a reality. It's kind of like the way it's looking like it might be for Syracuse football. But on the basketball side of things, we're so lucky to have a guy like Boeheim for that long, and that's one reason why I think I was so upset when Ben Howland went to UCLA, because I was like, as a big fan of the Big East, I was like, why? You're winning here, you're doing good here, and why do you want to go out west?
He's a West Coast guy, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Well, and Dixon's a West Coast guy too.
Right.
It seems like he'd be headed back that way too, but he likes where he's at.
All right, Brad, that's pretty good trivia. You got any more?
So a bit more. So think about the rivalry that should be and hasn't quite been. But if you think back in the Big East era, Syracuse and Pitt have played 52 times. How many wins do you think Syracuse has out of those 52? See who can peg it closer.
36. 38. 38.
I'll say 34.
31. Syracuse is 31-21 in the Big East era against Pitt.
Well, there you go.
In regular season play. So let's ask it differently. In the Big East tournament, 6 times Pitt and Syracuse have played in the Big East tournament. What's Syracuse's record in those games?
We won 2 of those games.
That's what I would say too.
Syracuse is 5-1 against Pitt in the Big East tournament.
Why do I think they always beat us?
I think it might have been Villanova that I was thinking of, but
well, we all remember Pitt had that run in the
where they made the finals,
like
ever.
They were in the finals like 5 straight years, or 4 out of 5, or 5 out of 7 years, or something.
They apparently weren't running into us in the prelims then. They were
That
beating
was it.
other
Yeah,
teams.
they only ran into each other one time, I think, in that
Final.
run from the Pitt had.
Well, we
Big
beat.
East dominated in the Big East tournament against Pitt.
Good to know.
Let me ask you this: in the Peterson Events Center, their current arena that they've been playing in since 2003, what is Syracuse's record in the Peterson Events Center?
I think we've only won there once, maybe twice. I'm going to say once though. I don't know how many losses, but I'm going to say one
They've
win.
played 7 times in the Pete.
1-6.
2-5.
Jim, good call. 1-6. And you know what the significance of that one was?
It was the last time we played them in the Big East there.
No. Flip it around.
It was the first time we played them. It was the opening day of the arena. I don't know.
No, but it was their first loss ever in the Pete. In their second year. They were undefeated in their first year, and Syracuse lost to them in their first year.
We got to really embrace this history because that we lose so much of our history in this move. But the one school in the new ACC that we have the most history with is Pitt. It's not Louisville. It's certainly not Boston College because they left before us from the Big East. So I think the one school that will help us keep those ties to our history will be Pitt.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a traditional Big East game coming up. It's
I love it.
Not an old Miami or BC or Virginia Tech, but somebody with recent history who we're used to playing every year.
Yeah, and frankly strikes a little fear into the heart of Syracuse fans. And my favorite Pitt game that I can remember is from the national championship season when we beat them in overtime at the Dome in front of 33,000 fans on a 5-degree January night, and Jeremy McNeil, probably the worst free throw shooter on the team and guy that was kind of troubled, had some issues while I was here, had to hit 2 free throws. He was shooting like 46%. He had to hit 2 free throws at the end of regulation and send it in overtime, and he did. And we went on to win the national championship. So, any more trivia, Brad? Any more Pitt trivia?
They've played 26 times in the Carrier Dome in their illustrious history. What's Syracuse's record in those 26 games?
Oh, I'm going to say 17 wins. No, I'm going to say 18 wins.
That's the exact number I was thinking.
18's too high. 16 and 10, Syracuse is.
Yeah,
it's surprising that they've lost 10 times to Pitt.
At home, yeah.
Those are some good Pitt teams.
Well, Pitt's always had solid teams. A team, that, a team that could beat anybody, and they never seem to, to have a big drop off or struggle. They're always there.
Funny though, I look at the history of this rivalry and all the games. There was a stretch from mid-1992 through 2001 where Syracuse won 17 out of 18 games.
Wow.
They were like the Seton Hall.
That's when Pitt was down, if you know what I mean, that era right there. They didn't make a tournament. Evans got fired, Willard took over, and he really didn't do much. And then finally they got Ben Howland to come in, and he turned the program around. But, yeah, they had a tough run there.
Ever since you went to William & Mary
right.
instead of Pitt, they
put
program
him in a tailspin.
Think what would have happened to Ralph Willard otherwise?
Be in the Hall of Fame. So
let's give you a little bit different spin. So how well do you know Pitt? Who's the leading scorer in the history of the University of Pittsburgh program?
The leading scorer in the
Jason Matthews.
I'm gonna say
No,
Brandon Knight.
is it an old timer?
Actually, let's do this. Let's ignore all old timers, and we'll just
Big
say
East era.
This guy's not an old timer, but
Oh.
I'll give you the rankings of guys in the Big East era anyway. So who's your guess then?
Brandon Knight.
I said Jason Matthews, maybe Sam Young.
Vonteego Cummings.
Brandon Knight's 12th on the all-time list. Jason Matthews is 4th on their list of Big East era. Sam Young 3rd on the list in the Big East era.
And Ashton Gibbs.
Ashton Gibbs is 6th on the list.
Charles Smith was a 4-year player, but I don't think he scored. I don't think he's a leading scorer.
Charles Smith is the leading scorer in
Is
the
he?
history of Pitt.
Wow. Charles Smith,
Yeah, Charles Smith, 2,045 points.
third pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah, missed a lot of layups in the NBA Finals. Charles Smith is first. Clyde Vaughan was a very early Big East player.
Most underrated Pitt player, I think, in school history is Clyde Vaughan.
He led them into the Big East. And then Sam Young, Jason Matthews, Ricardo Greer in 2001, Ashton Gibbs.
Vonteego Cummings.
Montego Cummings is 9th on the list. Demetrius Gore. Brian Shorter, Carl Krauser.
Yeah, Shorter. A lot of people don't think of Shorter, too. He was a good player.
Chevy Troutman from a few years back. Levance Fields.
A lot of good names there.
Jerome Lane, who we all remember.
Carl
fondly.
Krauser.
Curtis Aiken, Western New York native.
Well, that's Brad. This
Good
kind of
names on that list.
segues to our list of the week segment, because for the list of the week, I want to know who's on our all Pitt team. If you had to pick, 5 players that you would put on the all-time Pitt team, who they'd be, and you want me to give mine first?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going at guard, Sean Miller. Overall statistically, maybe not as impressive as some of the other point guards, but I think as a floor leader and general all-around college point guard, Sean Miller, and a coach of Arizona now, is one of my guards. He was a 90% free throw shooter. He averaged almost 6 assists per game, which is second best in school history. So I got Miller, and then at the other guard, I got Carl Krauser. He's the only Pitt player to have 1,500 points, 500 rebounds, 500 assists. Carl Krauser was amazing. Gritty, tough player. And
Seems like he was there about 12 years.
yeah, and he was there. He was part of that stretch where they had so much success in the Big East tournament. And that was tough to pick because they had lots of great guards. You just mentioned a bunch of them, Brad, but I would go with Miller and Krauser. And then at forward, I go with Clyde Vaughan. He's the only Pitt Panther to ever lead the Big East in scoring, and going back to the early days of the Big East, and his 9.5, I think he averaged 19 points per game in Big East games, for Pitt, which I think is the best in Pitt history. And he's also the only player in school history to have 3 seasons of at least 500 points and 250 rebounds. So Clyde Vaughan. Forward, I got a guy who was only there for 2 years, but he was pretty awesome. Juwan Blair. He was finished his sophomore season tied for second in the Player of the Year voting with Tyler Hansborough just behind Blake Griffin. I mean, he was a beast, so I'm taking him at forward. And then center, you got to go with Charles Smith. He was the only Pitt Panther to be a 4-time All-Big East team performer. And the thing about it, during the era he did it, there was a lot of great players in the Big East, whether it was Walter Berry or Pearl Washington or Patrick Ewing. Tons of great players in that era. So that's my top 5: Miller, Krauser, Vaughn, Blair, and Smith. What do you guys think?
I got a little bit different team than you. I got Brandon Knight at the point. Similar to Sean Miller, probably a little bit more athletic, but he had the most assists ever in a year, and he averaged almost 7 assists a game one year. They had a great team. They had upset. I think it was Sweet 16. It was one of the mid-majors beat them the one year. I can't remember who that was, but I forget. It was a team that made a nice. It might have been Gonzaga when they first started out. Then I got Jason Matthews, the 2, kind of a guy who I remember from kind of playing in some very good Pitt teams. Could really shoot the ball. He might be their all-time leader in 3-point shots made. Sam Young, I have at the small forward.
Yeah.
A great scorer for them. I always like watching him play. He's always under control. Did a lot of different things from rebounding and scoring the ball. Had Jerome Lane at the 4. Big scorer, big rebounder.
Big backboard smasher.
Send it in, Jerome.
Yep.
Send it home, Jerome. Then Charles Smith as the center, which I don't think that's you can even question that.
I think that's a no-brainer.
They had a couple of those big white guys there for a while in there, but none of them were Charles Smith. So,
Yep. How about you, Brad? Charles Smith, your center?
Yeah, Charles Smith is my center.
Okay.
I overlapped a lot with you guys. I had Brandon Knight and Jason Matthews in the backcourt like you did, Verk. I had in the front court I had Sam Young and DeJuan Blair. And I left Jerome Lane off. That was tough. It was either Sam Young or Jerome Lane, and I kept bouncing back and forth between those guys. But Sam Young was just solid.
If
for
Jerome
the
Lane
longest
didn't,
time, and he was a real underrated player, kind of flew under the radar a little bit. But
if Jerome Lane didn't break the backboard,
he
he's not on
show up.
anybody's list. And
I think Jerome Lane, yeah, you probably remember him more for the shattered backboard than you do. I mean, he's a great rebounder and went to the NBA a year early, so probably would put up even better numbers as a senior if he stuck around. But yeah, I think he's got a little bit more hype. I felt like Sam Young had a little more substance to him.
you guys both got Brandon Knight on there. I tell you, guy turned it over a lot, and he was a terrible, terrible free throw shooter, unbelievably bad. That's why I gave the nod to Sean Miller. But I think if you're just off the top of your head naming this five, I think I would have put Brandon Knight 2 at point guard. But I was looking at some of the stats, and I was like, man, that terrible turnovers, and an awful. He was like a 48% free throw shooter. The heck?
Yeah, well, Sean Miller's great. I was back and forth between Sean Miller and Brandon Knight myself. I thought Sean Miller was a
How about Levance
great
Fields?
point guard.
Yeah.
He played the point guard perfectly for that team.
Yeah, and he was also on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson when he was a kid. Remember, a la Tiger Woods.
He was a dribbling phenom.
Yeah, well, I guess this has been the Upstate Pit podcast for the last 10, 15 minutes, but it's fun. I love it. Love talking about these Big East teams, and we renew the rivalry against Saturday in the Dome. They're talking 30,000 fans, so let's step back and take a look at our power rankings, the top 5 teams in the country as we see them. I'll hold off on this and let you guys go first. Verk, let's hear your top 5.
I got Wisconsin 5. They did suffer a loss finally to Ohio State, but I was looking at their record, their wins. They've got some pretty good wins. They beat Florida, Notre Dame, UVA, Iowa, and Illinois.
Indiana beat them.
Yeah,
Ohio State.
Indiana.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Right.
It helps us.
Right. Indiana kind of struggling because they came in with a couple Big Ten losses already, and now they're going to Michigan State. So that was a huge win for them. So they could have been really dug themselves a deep hole in Big Ten play. I got Wichita State 4. They might go undefeated. They had a big rally the other night. They were down as the game they should have lost. They were down double digits in the second half, and they kind of got a little bit lucky and pulled that game out. But they got a good shot to go undefeated. Michigan State 3. I think they got all the talent in the world. I like Coach Izzo a lot. I like Payne. I like some of the guys on their team. They're tough kids, and they can score. They always defend well. They rebound the ball well. And I'm moving Arizona to the 2 and Cuse to the 1. I
love it.
I think I had to do it finally.
Was it the UNC game?
UNC, they didn't even play good, and they killed UNC. Like, Jerry Cooney was 4 for 17.
Yeah, you mean Trevor Cooney. You're talking like, who are you, Alfonso Ellis?
So, it's I've been listening to the ACC announcers too much. That was kind of an ugly game, really. I didn't even think it was like North Carolina stinks. From I don't know how they beat Michigan State at Michigan State.
I don't either.
That team that I saw Saturday, because nobody like
that was the team that lost to Belmont. That team was bad. They
Syracuse,
didn't show up.
the last 7 minutes of the game, like both teams just won the game. Then nobody was even trying to really play anymore. It was like weird.
And Big Bag North Carolina was just so intimidated by us at the rim. I mean, Rakeem Christmas played great that game, and we were getting to the loose balls, and they seemed to be shy away from the big scene. And it was a 12-point win, but it was more like a 30-point win.
Yeah, it was a game that Syracuse offensively didn't play well. Their defense was great, and they hustled. They got the loose balls. They did all the little things, but offensively they really struggled. So that was kind of impressive. Obviously, I see them play a lot more than Arizona, so I'm moving them up.
I love it. I've finally got some company. How about you, Brad?
I have Wisconsin 5. Same reason Burke said. I still think they're strong. They did lose one. At Indiana is a tough place to win. Syracuse was lucky they got to play them in the Dome. Different game in Indiana. It's a tough venue. 4th, I've got Villanova. I've watched a lot of Big East this season because I just can't give up on it.
CBS Sports Network.
Villanova's the class of that league.
Fox Sports
to me, the odds-on favorite to run away with that league, I think.
Yep.
Number 3, I have Michigan State. just with that one hiccup, they're getting it done. Number 2, guys, I was back and forth on this. After the Carolina game, in fact, I was talking with my dad about this, and I said, I'm finally going to move Syracuse up to number 1. And then the Boston College game came.
Another win, though, Brad, on the road at Conte Forum.
They played like garbage for 30 minutes.
I know it, and won.
So I don't like the fact that they played like garbage. I expect the number 1 team to not play like garbage. Arizona's kicking the crap out of Arizona State, their big rival right now. They don't play like garbage in those types of games. Syracuse, for some reason, does. They get it done, and we love the fact that they get it done, but I can't move them up to 1 yet.
All right, fair enough.
Arizona won.
Gotta have something to talk about.
Guys, I wanted to badly.
The thing that I took away from that Boston College game, obviously we struggled and we didn't play well, but like BC is horrible. I mean, they made like high school turnovers where like, Cooney just would freaking steal it. They pass it right to him. He had more dunks in that game than he's had in his 1.5 years in Syracuse. It seems like, and obviously they made shots. They shot the ball really well. I don't mean to take anything away from BC, but they made some horrible plays. Yeah. And I just felt like eventually it was going to catch up to them, just because they're not a very good team.
But we should.
My 9-year-old. They look like my 9-year-old team, and they get trapped in the corner and they just toss it somewhere so somebody can hopefully catch it.
Yeah.
Well, my power rankings, I got Villanova 5, and when you think about Villanova, the one loss is to Syracuse. You think of the Kansas win, but they also beat Iowa, who's a really tough team in that same tournament that they beat Kansas. So those are 2 really quality wins, and their only loss coming to Syracuse, and now they're competing in the old Big East and winning games. I got them at 5. Got Michigan State at 4, Wichita State at 3, Arizona 2, and the Cuse at number 1, where I've had them all year. Well, I actually haven't. I probably moved them up to number 1 maybe after that Indiana win, but they're there to stay until they lose, unless Arizona loses first. So,
who do you think will lose first?
It's tough because, I look at Arizona's schedule and I'm like, okay, when are these guys going to lose? And then I look at Syracuse's schedule and you just see this Pitt game is a challenge, and, going at Duke's a challenge, and then at Pitt I see is and then there's
at Miami.
At Miami. After we play Duke, we got to go at Notre Dame 2 days later. And so there's a lot of landmines in there, and you never know which game it's going to be. It'll probably be some random game. It might be that Miami game, just you never expect it. It could have been the BC game. So you never know, and I guess the same is true of Arizona. So I'd say you flip a coin on that one. I'm going to say Arizona, maybe Oregon, or I don't know. The Pac-10's decent.
Yeah.
Washington, maybe. I don't know. But how about moving ahead to our bold predictions? This is becoming tough. I'm thinking of scrapping this segment. Last week I predicted 2 games. Of the 2 games that Syracuse win by a total of 50 points. That didn't happen. Although I think I got screwed over a little bit by UNC because I was saying they're going to win by 25 points that game, and we really did. It was that. But of course, the BC game I came way under, so I was wrong there. Brad's bold prediction last week was that Tyler Roberson was going to outscore Grant. That didn't happen, Brad. And, of course, Verk with the obligatory B.J. Johnson prediction. He said he would go for double figures, thinking it might be a blowout against Boston College.
That's
right. But nothing for BJ. So we all whiff. And this year this week I was gonna say that Coleman returns with a double-double, or a half double-double. I say he's gonna have 5 points and 5 rebounds. That was gonna be my bold prediction. But then I hear on the Boeheim show on TK99 tonight, as I was driving home from Marcellus, that his knee's flaring up again, and so he probably won't play. So I'm going to let you guys go first while I come up with a new bold prediction.
Go ahead, Brad. What do you got?
I should say something about B.J. Johnson, since I haven't yet, but I'm not going to. I say Syracuse does not crack 50 points.
Against Pitt?
Against Pitt.
All right, that's pretty bold. That's a low output, 50 points. What do you got, Verk?
I'm going to say Benajay double figures in one of the games this week.
That's a good one, yeah. They only play once.
That's all. That's right. So Pitt. I'll say 10 points against Pitt, at least 10 points.
Okay, and now I quickly got to come up with my bold prediction. I'm just going to try to see the future here against Pitt, and what I'm seeing right now, I'm seeing Raheem Christmas. I'm seeing Raheem Christmas dunking the ball, getting putbacks, foul line jumpers. I'm seeing Raheem Christmas with 15 points against Pitt. And if you don't think that's bold, then you don't know Raheem Christmas. So there you have it, our bold predictions for the week. And before we head on out of here, it's time for two for the road. And the latest bracketology has us number 1 in the East. That means we go to Buffalo, and then we go to Madison Square Garden, and then we go to the Final Four. And it seems like that's ours to lose. That number 1 seed in the East. What would have to happen for us not to end up with that number 1 seed in the East? Would it have to be like a total implosion?
Villanova would have to run the table, and Syracuse would have to lose maybe 3 games.
Yeah, that is.
I think Villanova is the only logical candidate for it. You look at the top 20 right now. Villanova is the only East Coast team in the top 20.
Even so, even if that happens, both of them can go to Buffalo to start out with. You can have 2 number 1 seeds there because of the way they do the seeding now. Because when I looked earlier, they had Ohio State and Syracuse when Ohio State was undefeated as a 1 seed in the. They could be the 1 in the South. They could still go to Buffalo and play in the first round. It's not because they try to keep the teams close to home.
Yeah.
So you could have 2 number 1 seeds playing in Buffalo.
Yeah. Well, we would have to be
I'm
number
more
1.
concerned about Buffalo than I am about the Garden, honestly.
Yeah, that's where I want to end up. I mean, it's nice to play close to home in those first 2 round games too, but getting us in the Garden for the round of 16 in the Elite 8 would be really something.
That'd be that'd be nice. It's like playing in Albany the year. That's where they played in when they won the championship.
And then Boston after that, or Worcester or Worcester. But yeah, it sets up really nice for us this year. So 10:57 East Coast time. 3 minutes left in the show. Give me your final Pitt prediction, Virk.
I think it's going to be low scoring. I'm going to say Syracuse 64, Pitt 56.
Okay, 8-point win, Brad.
I don't truly believe that bold prediction I had. I still do think it's going to be low scoring. Like Virk said, I think it's going to be Syracuse 58, Pitt 51.
Yeah, I think we'll score a little bit more. I think I like a 68-53 win, a nice 15-point drop into the Panthers. So that's my prediction. Now, hey, Brad, next week, Virk and I, on Thursday, we're going to Lake Placid. We're going to do some ski jumping.
Nice.
Maybe some bobsledding.
Yeah, just Virk and I going on a little couples getaway, just the 2 of us. Actually, a bunch of people are going for our friend Phil's 40th birthday party. It's 40th birthday. We're gonna be up there for 3-4 days. And like I say, we'll be back on a special night next week, Tuesday at 10 p.m. So for my co-host Brad Connor, Matt Verkey, our producer Jeremy Hunt, I'm Jim Sinacropi. Let's go Orange!